So usually today's Wordy Wednesday, right? We usually do like the word activity or whatever, but today we're going to do something a little different, okay? So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and that side is agree. This side is disagree. You need to make sure when you go to either side that you're standing, depending on which position you take, right? So you're standing for what you believe. You're not sitting or leaning for what you believe. So make sure you're doing that, okay? So the first one is, I would be willing to make personal sacrifices, serve in the armed forces, or volunteer to assist my country if we were facing a war. Agree, disagree, go. Agree, disagree. You do need to choose a side, no middle ground. Did you give me the form?
I never got the form.
You did get the form, honey.
No, I didn't.
Wow. Garyana, you in the middle or you all the way over? Okay. All right, Nick, tell me why.
Because I just don't think I should have to make the sacrifice. There's plenty of other people, and I have to stay home and protect my family, work for them, not go off and try to be a hero.
Okay. Dominique?
I have never thought about being in a war, so I don't think I would.
Well, it wouldn't necessarily even mean that you had to be in a war. It could just mean some kind of big sacrifice that you'd have to make, like personal sacrifice, something that would affect you or your family. Still disagree? Okay. Noor, what do you say?
I agree because I would be fighting for my family and the people that I love. So, yeah. And, like, all the innocent people, so.
Okay. Jennifer, what about you?
Well, since the war, like, affects our country, everyone in our country, we all but we should show that we care for our country and, like, be in the war if anything just happens to happen.
Okay. Will, what do you say?
I think that it's kind of like my duty to serve my country, just because, I mean, like, I'm an American citizen, and if we go to war and I'm drafted, like if it's a situation where we have to be drafted, I'm not going to be able to say no. And so I would rather, like, be for that than be against it.
Okay. Janae?
If it was somebody else in the situation, I would want them to protect the country, so I would probably do the same thing.
Okay. All right. Thanks, guys. Americans should be prepared to make great sacrifices to preserve their freedom and protect the freedom and rights of other countries. Agree? Disagree? Again, Americans should be prepared to make great sacrifices to preserve their freedom and protect the freedom and rights of other countries. Agree? Disagree? Still same, huh? Okay, so you know how sometimes we align ourselves with other countries and we go fight for them for certain situations? Like that. Okay, that's the latter part of the question. All right, Garyana, I noticed that you moved. Do you want to say why?
Yes, because I believe that freedom is very important. Like, I think everybody should have, like, their own rights, have their freedom and what they believe in. So that's the reason why.
Okay, and Lauren, you switched sides. Why?
Well, I'm kind of confused on the question, but if it's saying that we have to fight for other countries, I don't want to fight for any other country. I think I'll just sacrifice for my own. Okay,
keep it here, keep it local, not go out abroad. Okay, that's fair. All right, finally, there are certain amounts of money that can pay for an injustice. So if you agree or believe that there are certain amounts of money that can pay for an injustice, you stay on this side. If you think that that's not true, you come on over here. Disagree. Huh. Okay, I'll say it one more time. So there are certain amounts of money that can pay for an injustice. So somebody does you wrong and they say, well, I'm sorry, let me compensate you for it. I'll give you $500 for, calling you a bad name or something like that. That's just an example, but there are bigger ones, obviously. Really? Everybody thinks that there are no amounts of money that can pay for an injustice? Henry, why do you say?
It's just wrong for me. I think it's just wrong that you can pay for what you did. You should be punished.
Sage?
I think some things like maybe a car wreck could be paid with money, but like some injustices like maybe killing somebody, I believe definitely couldn't be paid for.
Okay. Anybody else want to volunteer? Sedarius.
Well, one thing I personally believe is it's not morally correct. You've probably taken something that is of value to that person away from them, and money can't really buy your happiness, can't really replace anything that you just lost, that you hold near dear to your heart.
Okay. Darius, you want to add to that?
Yeah, because I don't think that. Wait. No, I don't think so. Because, say for example, if someone is devastated or something that happened, I don't think they should be able to reward them. I mean, not reward them, but pay them with money to make up for it. Because I don't think money can buy someone happiness. So, yeah.
Okay. All right, good. Thank you, guys. You can have a seat. All right, so you guys remember the essay that we read yesterday, right? Uprooting of a Japanese-American Family. Okay. All right, so we also kind of covered some of the nonfiction terminology that goes along with that. So one of the things that we were talking about was different types of writing or different purposes for writing: narration, description, persuasion, exposition, right? Explaining something, describing something. Now, did you think that her narrative was pretty descriptive? Did you guys think in general? Yeah, it was very, like, you could taste the sausages when she was talking about them putting the stuff on the plates with their fingers and all that kind of stuff, the bread and the potatoes and, right? And the washrooms and the lavatories and all that kind of stuff, right? All right, so, but if you think about it as a persuasion, you can kind of maybe consider it to be persuasive. If it is a persuasion, what is she trying to persuade us to believe or to think? Casey?
She wants, the author wants us, she's trying to persuade us and trying to get the full image in our heads how bad her experience is and just how bad the conditions are and what she's going through.
Okay. Anybody else? What is she trying to persuade us of? If it is a persuasive essay, persuasive memoir, anything like that. If there's persuasion in it. Erica.
I think it was like more of her showing us what happened when she was there, like show us what actually happened and what she had to go through in her family and all that.
Okay, did you catch the irony at the end of the memoir? Yeah. What was the irony, Poom?
She won't know if her dad's alive until he actually comes to meet the family.
Right. She didn't know if her dad was alive, but what else is ironic about that? It was situational irony, right? What was ironic about the fact that her dad was not with them? It was her mother and her family in the stalls and all that kind of stuff. What was more ironic about it? Anybody want to help him out? Where was her dad?
In Montana, I think.
In Montana where?
At a reservation, I think, somewhere. Yeah.
He was in jail, right? He got taken away because he was questioned as a suspect, right? So the irony is, like, he got released and he got pardoned, but he was going where? Was he going home? No, he wasn't going back home. He was going back to the camp with them. So the ironic situation is, in either place, was he free or was he home? No, he was imprisoned in either place, right? So she doesn't really hard hit at that topic, does she? Does she really like go hard at it and say, this is such a bad thing? Does she really like make us feel that way? Like it was such an injustice? She kind of hints at it here and there, but it's more just like putting out the information. Did you guys feel that? Did you think that when you were reading it yesterday? Okay. What is the tone? That kind of leads us to the next. So tone, again, is attitude words. Things that, if you can describe an attitude with this, you can describe tone with this. So Darius.
Sad and depressing. Not as gloomy or as melancholy as the stories of Edgar Allan Poe, but she sad and just kind of melancholy a little bit.
You thought it was sad? Okay, why?
Because of her descriptive words and descriptive things that she said. The descriptions, how she described things, like they had to struggle for water. They had to struggle just to wash their clothes, for food. It was all very depressing.
Okay, you thought depressing. Anybody else? Tone words? What was her attitude? Yeah.
I think she was just trying to be more informational. Like, she was being depressing and everything, but she was just trying to inform us, not us, but everyone, how, her situation was or how she lived and stuff.
Okay. Anybody else? Tone. Will? What was the tone? What did you say?
I would say.
What would you say her tone was?
I thought that she was. I actually found her tone to be more almost uplifting because she was describing how she and her family made light of a bad situation and befriended their neighbors and got all their, like made furniture and started to kind of get used to it. And then by the end, her dad was coming to meet them. I mean, I thought the whole thing was kind of building up to a more happier ending.
Okay, showing how people make the best out of a bad situation and thrive despite the hardship. Okay, sure. Why do you think she chose to tell the story in the ways that you guys said? Why do you think she chose to tell it from an uplifting standpoint, from a sad, melancholy standpoint, from a, informational standpoint? I'm trying to remember everything you guys said. So Darius.
I think if she really didn't tell it from that kind of standpoint, then we really wouldn't have got the point. She wouldn't have got her point across, We would have had a nonchalant attitude towards it, it wasn't that bad because of the way she's describing it.
Okay. Jennifer, you want to add to what you said before?
I just think she was just trying to get her story out and inform everyone how she was living, how her family was living, and she just wanted to describe her surroundings.
Okay. Anybody else? Tone, why did she choose to tell the story the way that she chose to tell the story? Imani.
I think she chose it because she was trying to have her readers look at her as a heroic kind of figure because to what Will said when he was she tried to make a bad thing into a good thing. I think that's the way she kind of said it.
Okay. Good. Lauren.
I think she kind of had a mix of a descriptive and persuasive tone, believe this, this is what happened in my life. So that's...
Okay, she said a combination of descriptive and persuasive. Okay. All right. Good job, guys. So this brings us to the next element, the next aspect of this. In general, what is your response when someone's rights are challenged? Okay? So you guys encounter a bunch of different situations every day. Some of them are minor, some of them are major, right? Some of them you just hear on the news and you think, oh man, that's terrible, right? But in general, what do you think your response is when someone's rights are challenged? So just think about it for a minute. Are you typically a defender, meaning you stand up for the person who is being victimized or who the injustice is happening to? Are you a silent bystander? You just kind of stand by and let it happen, watch happen? Or do you kind of follow? Do you participate in the injustice? Okay, so think about it for a minute. We talked yesterday, I think this was you guys, about what would you do, right? That show, what would you do, and how they, portray all these different scenarios or whatever. If this was happening, would you step in? Let's see how many people are going to step in. Let's see how many people are going to help, right? So what would you say?
I mean, I think I'd be a defender because I've been in a lot of situations where my friends were made fun of, and I'm usually there to stick up for them and stuff. So, yeah.
Defender. So Darius.
I would also be a defender because, I have a deep conscience, and if I just wander by and let that person get hurt or get injured, then it'll eat away at my conscience. I should think later. Oh, I should have did something about it. Oh, that was bad.
Okay. Nick.
I think most people are defenders when it comes to their friends and families, but in usual situations where we're just walking down the street and we see something happen, we just stay silent because we don't want to get in the mix of it. We don't want having trouble to ourselves.
More often the bystander.
I'm definitely a defender because, for example, a friend of mine put a picture of this boy on Instagram who doesn't have that many friends and people tease him a lot. So I asked her, I was like, can you take this down, because he goes to our schools, people are going to tease him, laugh at him. So I defend people no matter what, whether you're my friend or not. I feel like nobody should be mistreated.
Anybody else? Jennifer?
I think it depends on the situation. If it's a really important issue, then yeah, you should defend them and stand up for them. But if it's something small or something that they're getting in trouble for, they deserve it, I don't think you should defend. Just silently watch, I guess. But yeah, I guess it just depends on the situation.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people would say. But it's interesting that probably you guys are one group that I've seen more defenders in. Typically, and statistically, actually, people are more often the bystander. Back in, I think it was the 60s around there was this case where this woman was going home, and her name is Kitty Genovese, and she was being tormented. She was being stabbed by somebody. I don't know if she knew the guy or not. I don't know all the details of the story. But she was outside of an apartment complex. There were 38 people that saw this going on. Some people looked out of their window. Some people, passed by. But nobody called the police. Nobody. So the suspect left and ended up coming back later on and killing her. He didn't kill her first. He was stabbing, whatever the situation was. She was lying there. I think everybody else thought that somebody else was going to call, but nobody picked up the phone to call the police. Nobody picked up the phone to call 911, okay? So typically from that, I think a lot of psychologists, highlight that study and say, we need to look at why do people just stand by and watch things happen? Why do people stand on the outskirts? Why do people, just kind of let things go? And it says basically that when there's an emergency, the more bystanders there are, the less likely it is that any of them will actually help. Did you guys think about that, or is that surprising to you? If there are, like for example, if there's a fight, if there are masses of people in the cafeteria, do you think any of them is going to step in if masses of people are watching? Typically not, right? So it kind of is supported a little bit. And they call this particular phenomenon, I guess you could say, pluralistic ignorance. So this is where everybody assumes nothing is wrong because nobody else looks concerned. If he didn't step in, why should I? She didn't do anything about it, so I'll just stand back, okay? So usually it's like a 5-step process. Bystanders go through this whole process, and then at each point they decide, yeah, I'm probably not gonna do anything about that. They notice the event, and so they notice it and they see it kind of maybe at a glance, but they just keep going. Or they're in a hurry and they're just not even conscious of it. They realize the emergency and again, assume that because others aren't acting, maybe it's not as big of an emergency, maybe I don't have to do anything about it. Somebody else will. They assume responsibility or assume that others will take responsibility. Oh, I'll just let them handle that. It looks like they got it under control. They know what to do or they don't know what to do. So because I don't know what to do, I'm not going to step in. And then the final step is they act. But this could be worrying about the danger of the legislation embarrassment. If I step in, what's that going to mean for me, right? So the bystander effect has like a sequence of events. When am I going to step in? Am I going to step in? How am I going to step in? All those sorts of things, okay? So I want you guys to kind of consider that as you explore everything today. When we come back together, you guys are going to be like taking the bystander effect and breaking it down, unpacking it a little bit, okay? But you have various stations that you are working at today, and I have you guys split up into groups because of the technology that I know you have. So I probably will just keep it like that, but I don't know if it's going to be even. So we'll just kind of see. But basically, what you guys are going to be doing for this lesson, you're going to complete activities at 2 stations. So there are even-numbered stations and there are odd-numbered stations, okay? Basically, you're going to be doing and writing things down at each station. So why don't you guys go ahead and put your names, your MLA header on your papers if you haven't done that already, just so that you have it organized, okay? And for the stations where they are the even numbers, those are the ones that are more multimedia oriented. So if you have your headphones and things like that, you're going to be listening to the information, looking at the information independently, but then you're going to have points where you come back together. And the instructions tell you that, okay? All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say who's at what station. So let me just point out where the stations are so you guys know. This is station 1, this is 2, 3, move your notebook. 6, okay, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, and since we're missing some people, I don't know that we might just move them. Let me move you first and then we'll see if we need to do some tweaking, okay? All right, so group 1 is Jennifer, Will, Henry, and Cedarius, and you will start at station 1 over here, okay? Will? Okay, so when I call you and you're in your station, you can go ahead and have a seat. All right. Let's see, group 2, Chris is not here. Janae, Nick, Greg, and I'm missing somebody. Oh yeah, Chris is gone. So 2, you guys are here. Janae, Nick, and Greg. And then I might add somebody to your group. Okay, group 3. Is Carlita, Neha's not here, Lauren, and Poom. You guys start at station 5, actually, over there. Over here. And actually, I put you guys in the wrong place. You're starting at station 3. Okay? Okay, 4, that's where I am, right? Kaya, Catherine, Casey, and Noor, and you guys are starting at station 6. Okay, Kaya, Noor, Kat, and who's the 4th person? Casey, I said. Station 6. Okay. Group 5 is, Ahmed's not here, so Darius, Garyana, and Karasina. So 2 of your people aren't here. You guys are starting at station 4, so we might move you with another group, actually. Station 4. Garyana and Dan, okay, group 5, station, Darius, station 5. I didn't call you before, did I?
Yeah, you did.
I'm sorry. You're over there. And then group 6, Sage, Erica, Imani, and Dominique, and you guys are 2. You started at station 2. Okay, so let's see what how we can blend. This is even, that's odd. So why don't you guys one of you come here and one of you go there, okay? Daniel, did I miss? Oh, Daniel and Darius. Missed you guys. Okay, Daniel. Darius, you're in group 1. That's what it was. So why don't we, actually, let's just put you guys at station 4. Can we do that? Yeah. That'll work perfect. Okay, so each activity inside the envelopes at your station, each activity is in there. It has basically about 3 to 4 tasks. I think the odds have 3, the evens have 4. So you guys will share materials, but the instructions, each of you will get the instructions. Does that make sense? So go ahead and pull them out. Most of the stuff you'll be doing independently in terms of looking at the information, but for the other information, you'll be discussing from time to time, okay? So if you don't have the technology to scan the codes, you guys with me? If you don't have the technology to scan the codes, you can use the computer that's at your station, if you have one, okay? Or obviously you can share as well. Okay, so this would be a time where you could have your headphones. If you're gonna pull your phones out, just make sure that they're on vibrate, so if they ring, they don't, mess everything up.
In the face of political, military, and public pressure, Roosevelt accepted the relocation proposal. The Attorney General acquiesced after the War Department relieved the Justice Department of any responsibility for implementation.
No, you're skimming. I mean, it just shows you like what happened when, so you can get the big picture. Background, big picture, video. Here is what you guys are doing all together.
Patriotism, family.
Didn't they sort of in the video do like name calling on them in the beginning?
They called them Japanese. I don't think that's considered I don't think so. Okay, the next two are ways of making false connections. Transfer, device by which the propagandist links the authority or prestige of something well respected and reserved.
What do you mean by the social comment that he made?
What is the comment to the society?
Okay, thank you.
Maybe it could be a message. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just go to the two propaganda groups first, and then also I'm gonna kind of touch on the other groups that have the cartoons and the photos and that sort of thing, okay? So be ready. All right, this group over here, Station 1, what did you say in terms of the video? And again, I'm sorry that the other group couldn't see it. We'll probably come back to that. But what did you think was a highlighted feature? What did you guys maybe even say in common in terms of the propaganda that you might have seen in this video that you watched?
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, so you guys all listed different kinds of propaganda. I see two of you had fear, for example. What did you say? How did you explain that fear was a tactic that was used in the video that you saw?
Well, they sent the Japanese to a little camp or whatever. That's not their home, so it's like they're in an unknown place and they have to like, it's fearful because you have to adapt and stuff and you don't really know what's going on because you're moving and like, they're just taking you somewhere and like, you just, yeah.
Okay. Interesting. What else? What other techniques did you guys see?
Plain folks.
Okay, why do you say plain folks?
Because like they're like, I guess they're trying to get our sympathy or something, or because they're like, we built nurseries for the children and all that stuff. So
Yeah. Okay, what kind of propaganda techniques did you guys see?
You said plain folks was one of them, because they were saying, oh, they're still happy, they're living their normal lives, but in reality, that's probably not the case.
Okay. What about bad logic? Why a bad logic?
Because they were trying to rationalize things and like make things seem fine that they weren't fine. Like they were putting in words. They were like stretching. It was kind of like stretching the truth almost.
Okay. What about unwarranted extrapolation? I see that on here. Why did you guys say that? A couple of you said that. Why did you pull that one out?
Well, they were sort of like making predictions for their future. Yeah. They were saying like where they're gonna go and what they're gonna do.
They're taking like extreme precautions.
Yeah. They were thinking that because of Pearl Harbor, that something might happen with them as well. So they wanted to like, take extreme precautions.
They're expecting
something bigger would happen.
Yeah, expecting something bound to happen.
Okay. All right, so the other stations that had more of the documents, what did you guys focus on in terms of either political cartoon or photograph that maybe really caught your attention or that you really wanted to discuss? I'll start with Station 3. Which picture possibly, and then I could show it to the other.
Probably this one.
Okay. Why? They're pointing at this one, guys.
Because it makes it seem like all the Japanese were like double agents trying to attack America from the inside. And I thought it was weird that Dr. Seuss drew it.
Mm-hmm. Everybody was a suspect? Okay. Anything else that you guys focused on? Different ones, maybe? You all focused on the same one?
No, I focused on this one.
This one? Why? Okay, the one, basically, it's Uncle Sam flying through with a butterfly catcher, and it says enemy alien problem, and it has a bunch of other signs, keep them flying in the other direction, things like that. Okay? Why did you focus on that?
I focused on that because the attack on Pearl Harbor, they was kind of like keeping their eyes on them and trying to keep them away. So that's why that kind of caught my attention.
Okay. Just because of the message of it, maybe?
Yes.
Okay, what about you guys? Lauren.
I did this one where it says Japs keep moving. Keep moving. This is a white man's neighborhood. Just because it really reminded me of slavery with African Americans. So I know a lot about that. So I could work on this.
Relate. You made a connection with that. Okay. Anybody else at this table? Anything else you guys want to add to that? Daniel? Did you choose that one or you chose a different one? What did you choose? Okay. What did you say about this one? Or what stood out about it to you?
They had the Japanese people as bugs flying around.
Mm-hmm. It's a pet. They're pests, like almost. Okay. Good comment. All right. Anybody else? Final thoughts? Sedarius.
One picture, like I chose, is the same as theirs. The one about white racial. Well, I'm sorry. The one about Japs keep moving on. This is a white neighborhood, and like I said previously, the thing we talk about most is the division in history between that of blacks and whites. But now I'm looking at this picture, and I'm saying that there was not only a hatred towards just one group of people, but it's a total division between all sects. It's like every race for themselves, basically, in this time period.
Okay. Anybody else? Final thoughts on what you saw, read, anything? Okay. So let's go ahead and kind of transition. What I'll do is some of you have books at your stations, and I'll bring more. And I do have copies of the essay as well that we read yesterday. And I'll explain what you're going to do with this. Henry, just pass that way for me. Actually, you know what? How many did I give you? Just make sure everybody has one and then pass.
Do you need to open the book?
You might not. Just sit tight. Okay, so what you guys have in front of you is something that is called the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Now, this is the simplified version. There's a bigger version that has actually, it looks like a constitution or something. It has actual articles on it and things like that. But this is the simplified version for younger people, okay? So you guys notice that there are 30 articles, all right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have you glance at these really quickly. Just glance at them, front and back. And maybe focus on the two that you think are most important, like for your own personal value system, for your life, whatever, the way you operate on a daily basis, which ones stand out to you the most? Just kind of think about that, okay? Everybody have a couple, or at least one? Okay, focus on that one. All right, so I'll start, and then I'll just we're gonna go clockwise around, and I'll just point to you, okay? All right, so the first one I said is, we are all equal before the law, and your human rights are protected by law.
One I chose is no one can take away your human rights.
Don't discriminate.
No slavery.
Freedom of expression.
We are all born free and equal.
The right to a democracy.
We are all born free and equal.
Right to a nationality.
Freedom to move.
Marriage and family.
The right to life.
The right to life.
We're always innocent till proven guilty.
Oh, don't discriminate.
The right to play.
The right to life.
Responsibilities.
The right to privacy. A fair and free world.
The right to education.
Freedom to move.
Freedom to move. Okay, thank you guys for sharing that. All right, so finally, because this is probably all we have time for. Yesterday, again, we read this Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So I guess maybe now, not that you needed to, because it seemed like you guys were all pretty much in the defender mode and on the defender side, not the bystander side specifically. But I want you to kind of take a couple of excerpts from what we read yesterday in terms of the Uchida essay. Okay, I have copies of it, and you do have a book at your station too. So if you could use either one, basically. But I want you to take a couple of excerpts showing where any of these human rights were violated. Okay, so with what we read yesterday, with what you saw today, you could say too, take a couple of pieces and find where the rights were violated. Okay, I want you guys to discuss that with one another, and then I'll tell you what finally to write on the paper. Okay?
Well, they took away human rights. I mean, imprisonment, pretty much.
Wait, where's that? What number?
They were just told to move into a camp without anything proving that.
Yeah, they have like the affordable house, medicine, education, a lot of
Yeah. They did, but they didn't really have the choice to, like I said, they didn't have the freedom to move wherever they wanted to.
So basically, after looking at the violations that occurred in the excerpt that we read, right? How important is it that we uphold these human rights so that stuff like this doesn't happen anymore, right? That's the goal. So we want to make sure as responsible citizens that when we're reading about historical events and things that actually happen in literature, how can we ensure that we're not going to be bystanders, that we're going to actually make sure these things happen, that these things are upheld for all people, ourselves included. Okay, so when you write your final thoughts on your paper, what you're going to write down is, it's important to uphold this. So when it says create an argument about how it is important to uphold these things today, you're going to create an argument about why we need to make sure that we uphold these specific values and these specific principles, articles, so that stuff like this doesn't happen to anybody in our country. Okay? That was. No, you're good.
But you said don't discriminate. Nick?
Okay, guys, wrap up what you're doing in the next minute. Imani, what did you say? How can we move forward and uphold this right so that we don't have a society of bystanders?
I said, don't treat another person like they're lesser than you. Treat them equally, like they're like a family member.
Okay, treat other people like you would your family. All right, Jennifer, what about you?
I said that everyone is born free and equal, so we all deserve that right, and people come to the United States for freedom, and they should actually get the freedom.
Okay. All right, so for time's sake, remember you guys read the little excerpt yesterday called the Good Samaritan Laws, right? Remember that? So you kind of see how all of this is connecting. Wouldn't it be great if we had a society full of Good Samaritan laws or no bystander laws so that everybody would uphold these principles? And then we'd probably have a much better society, don't you think? I think so. All right, so you have about a minute left. Go ahead and make sure, why don't one person at each station collect the papers for me? And I'll get those on your way out.